Hi folks, and welcome to another episode of Hangar Chet-Chat, and this will be episode 6. Okay, so I've had a few problems with my GPS. Now the GPS runs off of a cigarette lighter. It's a portable GPS, but it's panel mounted. What the problem was, this fits in the cigarette lighter, the normal type, and this fits onto a plug which I had to remove to put another one of these on. So that's where the break was, and it's always in that area where they bend, and that's why they got that rubber stuff around it. But I don't know, it never seems to work out. Now mind you, I've had the GPS for a while. I also took the seats out. They're right here. And the reason why I took the seats out is because I wanted to get in the airplane and actually do some vacuuming. And to get in and around the tracks is kind of difficult with these seats in there. Usually in this area here, it gets pretty dirty all down underneath the seats. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of wiring in there too. I wanted to kind of clean some of that stuff up there. And you got to be very careful because this is the back seat, and it's a bench style seat, and there's no way of really keeping it open unless you support it with a 2x4 or some kind of other stick of some sort. So I cleaned the inside of this, and I wanted to get inside these holes, especially these, because what happens sometimes is if those holes are all full of gunk, then the seat won't properly latch. It's kind of a bugger when you take off and all of a sudden your seat rolls back. So I cleaned all that up, and that's the GPS that I was referring to, and it plugs into a cigarette lighter. So that problem's been rectified now, it works. The GPS I've got is one of these. This is an aviator, and it just slips in here like that, okay? And so you basically have a panel mounted GPS. Yeah, that's what I was doing over the last little while. That's why I haven't been flying it either. Well, it's actually been quite cool as well, so that meant you had to preheat the airplane all the time, and I don't know, that seems like a whole day gone just doing that. As you can tell, it's kind of cool in here right now. Matter of fact, in the hangar, it's a balmy minus, what is that, minus 12, minus 13, and that's at 11, just after 11 o'clock in the morning. Let's get into the office and do another episode of Hangar Chet-Chat. So there we are. I've got a new heater. This heater actually is a 18,000 BTU, and it has an automatic sensor in it, so if you get some carbon monoxide indication that your oxygen levels are getting a little bit low, that thing will just shut off. So that's built in, and it works off a 22 or 20 pound propane tank, which is right in the unit itself. So it's a nice little stove. It's a lot better than what I had in there before. Well, an added surprise, while I was putting the seats back in, guess who showed up? The wifey. And look what she brought from the bakery. Oh my goodness. I had a lemon one, but I already ate it. Good stuff, good stuff.
Very good stuff.
Yes. Put a little weight on me. You know, I've got that the new heater. Well, it's already in here. As you can see, it's 21 degrees, 22 degrees, and that's on that outside wall there. So it's probably a little warmer where wifey's sitting, and I've only got the center heater on, and it's still pretty cool outside. That's what I've been up to, guys. So let's get this Hangar Chet-Chat going. All right, folks, and welcome back to Hangar Chet-Chat. Jeez, I keep on forgetting how to say that. Anyway, this is episode 6. And on the last episode, I told you that things were starting to happen. I was transferred to Vancouver with CP Air. They were closing the base in Toronto, and they were going to centralize the whole flight operations dispatch in Vancouver. So back to Vancouver I had to go. Now, you've got to understand there's a few things that were happening at that time that I wasn't really too happy with. The whole idea was I was going to go in and at some point in time hopefully become a pilot. It's the future I was looking at in this particular case. And at that time we had just, I guess a few years prior to that, we had become member of a union which really didn't encompass the flight operations end of it. You got to remember this was back in the 70s when this was happening, in the late 70s, and we never really had a flight dispatchers association of any sort. We were part of a group of airline employees that were all ground based, and as far as getting any support from any of the other departments, there wasn't much. So needless to say, the problem that arose was whether or not this move was going to be a company move. Now, there's no way that I could afford to move my family, and one other thing I got to tell you about is we were about to have a addition to the family, and that was coming up in a couple of weeks, I guess it was. But in any case, so I started looking for another job. And I put out applications, and I just happened to see one from a company, the Pas, Manitoba. Now, who the heck wants to move to the Pas, Manitoba is beyond me, but anyway, the offer came open, and it was with Lam Air. Lam Air at that time had quite a few aircraft. They had 4 or 5 DC-3s, they had a bunch of Twin Otters and other assorted aircraft. And the job that they were offering me was something which looked like there was some light at the end of the tunnel. The job they offered me was to come in as a flight dispatcher and work my way into the right seat of a Twin Otter, and then from the Twin Otter eventually get into the left seat, I guess, of the Twin Otter, and then finally in the DC-3 and so forth. And that seemed like a real adventure to me. I was really taken by this. So anyway, to make a long story short, because this will be a long one if I keep on going this way, the chief pilot phoned me up, and he said to me, Chet, he says, I've got your resume here, everything looks fine, and we're quite willing to hire you. And so I said, okay, give me some time to think about it, because there is a few things that are going on, and I just want to get a few things clarified with the company prior to taking this big bold step of moving up into northern Manitoba in March. Anyway, make a long story even shorter. I keep on saying this, but it never gets shorter. Anyway, the company, that is CPR at that time, they came through and they said, no, it's going to be a full company move. Everything's going to be paid for. In other words, they'd sell the house and all the other things that came with it. They were going to move one of the cars, and the other car I had to drive, but they gave me time off to do it. So the bottom line is, I called back the chief pilot, and I said to him, well, look, I said, the problem's resolved itself with the company I'm working with now, and so what I'll do is, forego the potential job offer. I ended up moving to Vancouver, and like I said, one of the cars went on the train. We just recently bought a new little Toyota Corolla for the wife, and that went on the train. And then my brother-in-law and I, we drove the other car we had to Vancouver. And the doctor had said to us, don't worry about it, the birth of your firstborn, that won't take place till the end of the month. So, and this was near the beginning of the month, so there wasn't any problem. Anyway, my brother-in-law got in the car after they finished loading the moving van, and off I went, or off we went. Anyway, that night, bang, my wife went into labor, and they had no way of getting a hold of us to let us know what that was happening. Cell phones weren't around yet, and we'd been driving basically all night because I wanted to get to Vancouver and then get on an airplane and go back to Toronto.
from Vancouver. But anyway, we ended up trucking, and I didn't find out that I had a daughter born while I was driving my car until we got just east of the Rocky Mountains. And I found out by making a phone call at that time, seeing how things were. Anyway, everything was fine at that point, and I ended up going to Vancouver. Now, at that time, while this was going on, we had a house built in Vancouver. It was up in North Delta, a real nice house. I was really happy with it. And fortunately, we'd sold our house in Vancouver, or actually it was in Waterdown where we sold the house. We sold it and we got a good price for it, and we ended up being able to afford purchasing a home in Vancouver and having it built. Now the next thing that came up, we had to get the Cub to Vancouver. So the Cub was still in Toronto, mind you. I didn't really want to keep or fly this thing out in the winter. So we ended up flying the Cub out. Now, I had known a few pilots that were just starting with the company, and they'd been laid off with the company on a DC-8 second officer's course, and one ended up working with me as an assistant dispatcher. Another one of them went into crew scheduling, and of course they wanted time. Now I had at that time quite a few hours already, so I didn't really need any more time, but these guys were pretty keen on getting time. So I said, well, if you want to come with me, and they did, I can take one at a time, obviously, in a Cub, and you can log the time, because well, you know, these guys were already basically had their foot in the door in the airline end or in the pilot end of it. So it didn't matter to me at that point whether I got another 15 or 20 hours or whatever it was. It took us, actually it was over 30 hours it took us to get to Vancouver. But anyway, so these two guys split it. Now Gary was the first chap, and we took off in the summer, and we went, I've got my logbook out here. We took off on July the 4th to Wyerton. Now, I've got a video of this. It's an 8mm video, and I think it's vlog number 2, if I'm not mistaken. I'll post it up top there, and you can just click on that and watch it. And it's an 8mm, so the quality isn't all that great, but anyway, it's reasonable. Anyway, we took off and went from Burlington Airport to Wyerton, and then from Wyerton up to Gore Bay. Now we did make a stop just north of Wyerton, because we ran into fog, and you'll see that actually on the video. And I took off again. I left Gary behind because it looked like we may have to stay overnight and then continue on. But anyway, by the time we got to Gore Bay, it wasn't good. Things started falling apart up there, so we said we're just going to stay in Gore Bay. We ended up going to some place that had cabins, and we spent the night there. The next day we took off from Gore Bay to Sault Ste. Marie to clear customs. That's the American Sioux. And then from there we went to Rhinelander, and that was on July the 5th, 1977. Now, I had to do some research on this because we weren't quite sure what the heck had happened. But when we landed in Rhinelander, it was a mess. The approach end of the runway, all the trees had been flattened, probably at least a half a mile wide, and they were just laying just flat right on the ground. And the same with the departure end of the runway, just totally flattened. And airplanes, they were laying all over the place. I remember a DC-3 laying, I can't remember if it was damaged or not, but I know it was tied down, and it was sitting real weird angle at the airport. So even the DC-3 was thrown around. Anyway, like I said, I did some research, and I got this from the National Weather Service, and it said July 4th, 1977 downburst. Independence Day, 1977 downburst. On July 4th, 1977, a severe thunderstorm complex moved across northern Wisconsin. Anyway, and it produced extreme damage to trees and properties. The hardest hit areas included Sawyer, Price, Oneida counties, and so forth. The damage was described like that of an oversized tornado. And then it says, in fact, a 166-mile long and up to 17-mile wide swath of damage was caused by straight line winds of a thunderstorm complex that first hit about a 1:15 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Winds exceeded 115 miles per hour in the Sawyer County. A large section of the Flambeau State Forest, including trees 4 feet in diameter, were flattened. One person was killed in a camper and 8 injuries were reported in Sawyer County. It says the ferocious storm resulted in over $24 million in damages, and that was in 1977 dollars. You know, I don't know whether we were just lucky or whether we actually saw something that didn't fit we just didn't feel right about something, so we landed and stayed overnight in Gore Bay. I can go on this. We did have a few more little adventures going on, but that's about the extent of it that I'm going to go on to. We did go, let's see, from Rhinelander we went to Hayward and then to Crookston, and then at Crookston we ended up doing a crew change. And another friend of, one of our other pilots who wanted to collect some time, but again on a laid off status and working as a crew scheduler, decided to come with me, and that was Heinz. And Heinz came with me from there. What they did is they'd split the trip. Gary took it as far as just south of Winnipeg in the States, and he rented a car and then met us at the airport where we were staying. And then from there, Gary took the rental car, went back up to Winnipeg, and took a flight back home to Toronto. And Heinz took over from there, and we flew to Delta Air Park. By the time we got to, I think it was in Cranbrook. Yeah, when we got to Cranbrook, it was either in Cranbrook or Castlegar. You'll see a Pacific Western Airlines Boeing 737, and you'll see my Cub right on the ramp. And some years later, Pacific Western Airlines and Canadian Pacific, or CP, they ended up getting together, and we ended up becoming Canadian Airlines International. I did some other trips within the province there. I went down south with it, actually. I took it down to San Juan Islands, Bellingham, San Juan in the States, which was kind of interesting. And then I did another trip up to Barrier, Kamloops, Barrier Lake, I guess it was. And then a buddy of mine that I worked with, Mike, and Mike, you're probably going to watch this anyway. I took Mike up a lot of times. I think Mike probably had about 15 hours in the airplane and flying the Cub from the front seat. Now Mike wasn't a pilot. Mike worked with me as a dispatcher, and then later on he became a flight ops manager. Mike and I, we had some fun, and I won't go into that right now, but Mike got quite a few hours on the front seat, and I basically checked him out on the Cub. And like he was flying the front seat. Now the front seat didn't have the brakes connected or anything like that. It just had the stick and the rudder pedals. And I would take Mike up at Delta Air Park, and we'd use the short runway there. They had 2 runways actually. They had a sort of an east-west one and a north-south one. And I took him up. I remember, I don't know how many hours he had with me at that time, but he'd stay up with me maybe 1 or 2 hours in the Cub and just doing touch and goes and a little bit of air work. And he actually never landed it. He did the takeoff, which was guarded. We were going to take a trip, and we'll go into that a little bit later on in one of my next little videos out here. So Mike, get ready for that one. But I remember the first time I let Mike land, because I thought, well, he looks pretty good. He knows what he's doing here, and I'll let him land. So we were on final, and Mike, you got to remember Mike, he was a tall, slender fella, and he was probably well over 6 feet, and it was in the summer. And I let him come in, and he, of course, at a certain point in time, he'd say, "Okay, it's yours. You know, you have control." And I'd say, "No, you're doing fine. You're doing fine." And you know, we got closer and closer to the ground, and well, you take it, and I'd say, no, you're doing great. And I could see the sweat running down the back of his neck here, you know, like he was, no, I can't land this, I can't land. Anyway, he ended up landing it. And boy, was he happy. He was just a real tickled pink. So anyway, Mike got checked out on the Cub, and I was quite confident that he was quite capable of flying it should anything happen. But we had a real good trip, and it was in August 1978, and I'll get to that one probably the next video I'm going to end up doing is that one. So I'll see if I can get some data together, and we'll tell you about that trip going up north, because that had a lot of adventure in it, and we really enjoyed it. It was a great trip, even though we did have some incidents even though we did have some situations, let's say, that occurred. Anyway, folks, I'm going to leave it at that, and thanks for watching again. And if you like this little series, I've got other things on here as well. I've got over 200 videos or vlogs or whatever you call it fall under the Tag Along with Chet title. So if you're interested in this sort of stuff, just hit that subscribe button. It's on your bottom. Yeah, I keep on forgetting. I think it's over here or over here. Anyway, I keep on forgetting. Anyway, you'll see there's probably a picture of my face. Just click on the face and it'll say subscribe. Or if you're watching it on Facebook, there's a subscribe button on there as well, I believe. And that'll subscribe you to YouTube. And when you do that, there's a little bell. Click the bell, and it'll also tell you when the next video has been uploaded. And usually I try and do at least one a week. Sometimes I can't because of, well, whatever. But I try to do at least one a week. And hopefully you'll subscribe to the YouTube channel, because it helps me out. Anyway, folks, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you the next time. Bye for now.